The only words I remember from the visit with my doctor was malignant mass. And that just rolls over you like a rock.
So Dale, this is an awesome conversation to have, because the fact that we're sitting here, it's really an answer to prayer. It's really a miracle, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And tell us about why is it so miraculous? Some may not know.
In January, I began showing symptoms that turned out to be diagnosed as stage 3 pancreatic cancer. You never have any idea this is coming. Pancreatic cancer is often misdiagnosed in its early stages because the symptoms often lead to other initial diagnoses. And by the time you realize what you're dealing with, unfortunately for many people, it's too late. Or it becomes a bigger problem to work through. I feel God blessed me by having my initial symptom that was obvious show up so early and so strong that allowed us to get a diagnosis and work on the problem that I had. And I just think it was God's will that He wanted us to be able to work through this.
How did it impact you? Because it came out of the blue.
Yes.
You have stage 3 pancreatic cancer. Like, yes. What kind of pit was that for you when that first hit you?
When I got my initial not diagnosis, but the initial time that I learned that there was a major problem. The only words I remember from the visit with my doctor was malignant mass. And that just rolls over you like a rock. I don't remember much more than that from the initial visit with the doctor when I learned this. I was glad Linda was with me and she was driving that day. I don't remember much about that weekend. But you confront your mortality at that time. You look in the mirror and you have to take a hard look. And all the thoughts and the dreams about life going forward just kind of get slammed shut. And you begin to think, okay, I got to work on this day to day. What am I going to do day to day? I want to make it from this day to the next day. And when I make it to the next day, what I have to do to make it another day? What do I need to do? And it really changes your perspective on how you look forward with what you thought you planned for the rest of your life.
That initial diagnosis is so hard. I just wondered, was there anything harder than that? I mean, you had to go through surgery and treatments. What was the hardest part for you? What was the deepest valley?
Well, there were a lot of valleys. I think the deepest one was the beginning of chemotherapy. I had 12 rounds of chemotherapy. Before the first round, the oncologist had a long talk with us. One of the components in my chemo cocktail, he knew I would probably have a problem with. From genetic testing that had been done, he knew I had a genetic problem in my liver that would give me problems handling one of the components. He purposely scaled back the amount of that component But for the first round of chemotherapy, it didn't seem to make a difference. I still had a lot of problems. I ended up in the hospital a week after my chemotherapy because I could not keep any fluids in my body. It was scary. Everything would go in, would leave.
Very, very scary.
And Linda was scared too. She didn't know what to do for me, and I couldn't tell her what to do. So I spent 6 days in the hospital trying to get these side effects under control. And the first 3 days was spent with them ruling out the fact that they wanted to verify I had no infection. It was giving me a problem. And I understand that. But at least I was in the hospital and they could keep an eye on me and try to keep fluids in me. Once they determined there was no infection, they were able to work on bringing the problems I was having under control, and I was allowed to go home again. The downside to this, while I was in the hospital, I missed my second chemo treatment that was scheduled, and it got let go for another 2 weeks. So I went a month with no chemo, and it set my schedule back and everything that we had kind of planned based on that schedule. But my fourth day in the hospital, the first 3 days was rainy and cloudy. The morning of the fourth day, the sun was coming through the window. At 6:30 in the morning, my housekeeper came in to clean the floors and empty the trash. And I commented to her that God had sent the sunshine that morning for us to cheer us up. And she finished her work and she stopped and she said, yes. She said, God is the physician of all physicians. And she looked at me and she said, He is going to heal you and you are going to be fine and you will be over this. And she left the room. At the lowest point, that was my lowest point in this whole ordeal. I was so dehydrated and so discouraged and felt so bad. He sent that housekeeper to me to pick my spirits up.
Yeah.
And I still remember her standing there telling me those words. And she didn't know me from anyone else. But she came to me and she told me those words.
That's
I'm sure that God directed her to come to me.
Absolutely. God sent you various encouragements and signposts like that, didn't he?
Yes. Yes. The day that I had my surgery at the beginning of all this, I had a Whipple procedure. And they basically gut you like a Christmas goose. That's what they do to you. I lost half of my pancreas. I lost my gallbladder, my duodenum. And the rest of everything else that was left was all stitched together, and that's my new digestive system. So there's a lot of healing that has to go on. The day of the surgery was a Friday. And when the surgery was completed, the surgeon came out and talked to Linda and reassured her that everything had gone as he had expected and nothing unexpected had turned up, which was good news. And he made a comment to her that normally he did not operate on Fridays. And this was a Friday. Why did he choose to operate on me on a Friday? I'm sure God had his hand in that. God must have had his hand in that. And I mean, that was the beginning of some of the different signs that we saw.
When did you first really start to see that God was working to heal you, and what that woman said was true. You were going to get over this and on the other side.
As we got by my third chemo treatment, when I went in for my third treatment, my oncologist told us that he had more genetic testing results. And the component that was giving me all the trouble was being eliminated from my cocktail because it was not critical to my treatment going forward. The largest component that I had in my cocktail was the most effective component to treat the genetic makeup of the tumor that I had and anything that was still left behind. So they eliminated the problem that I had. God had to be in that. He had to be in that. After 6 treatments, they sent me for a scan to see if I was making progress. When I went in for my 7th chemo treatment, I met with the oncologist beforehand. He had the results of the scan. He went through a lot of technical things, and he told us that there were no signs of active cancer in my chest, my abdomen, or my pelvis. And I said, "Excuse me, can you repeat that? I want to make sure I heard this correctly." And he repeated it. And Linda and I just sat there and cried.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And I could tell that the oncologist was misty-eyed. And I feel sure that he was happy because he was beginning to realize maybe someone was going to walk out of his care rather than be carried out of his care. And I felt happy for him that I was doing well and that he could rejoice in that. That evening, I received a call from my home care nurse, and she was scheduling her appointment at home with me the next day. Nurse T, a good God-fearing woman that we became very close to during 6 months of her visits to my house to keep an eye on me. And we discussed many times God's role in all this. So I told Nurse T that I had good news for her the next day when she showed up, and that's all I told her. And she came the next morning, and she came inside, and I said nothing. I just handed her a copy of the report about the scan. And she read through it. And she looked at me and she said, "Do you know what this means?" I said, "Yeah, I think I know what it means, but I want your opinion, your professional opinion on this." She said, "This is the miracle that we've been praying for." She said, "I've been doing this for 20 years. I don't see this. This is a miracle, and you have to realize that." And I said, "I've got no doubts."
You walked into this with the Lord. I mean, I remember the Lord's Supper at your house, and it was the very beginning of all of this crisis. But you have had a resilience through this that's been, pretty remarkable and inspiring. What have you learned through this that you would tell us when we face the challenges that are no doubt going to come?
You can't control the outcome yourself. You have to trust the Lord. You do. And it's hard. It's hard because we're human and we're not built that way. You really have to trust the Lord. There were many times I was ready to give up. And if it weren't for Linda, some days having to drag me along by the arm to keep me going forward, I would have given up. But her, what's the word I'm looking for? Her dedication to God and all this. One day she found me in the office at home, and I was going through paperwork. And she said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I just want to go through a few things to make sure everything's in order. In case something happens, I want everything to be in order for you if I'm not here." She said, I don't have any doubts that you're going to be here. And that's what I had to lean on. And if I hadn't had that to lean on, I wouldn't be sitting here today, because I would probably had too many opportunities to give up. So that's what's helped bring me along, is having someone on my arm, locked with me, dragging me forward at my low points to keep me going. And hopefully I'm able to do the same for her when she has doubts.
The surgery alone, the diagnosis alone, the surgery, the treatments, those are all huge hurdles, and you wouldn't ever want to go through it again. But I've heard people say, well, I wouldn't want to go through it again. I wouldn't want to miss how God came near to me or moved. Do you feel some of that in terms of the things that you saw God do, or the things you've learned?
Yes. And that's hard to say.
Yeah,
it's very hard to say.
It's been okay to say no.
No. It's got to be part of the process to get there. It's got to be part of the process of allowing God to take over and to comfort you and to pull you along. If you don't have the hardships, you don't reach out, because everything's too easy. I've learned God is there. And yes, I'm still human. And I still have my weak times and my weak spots and my weak moments. But down deep, I know He's there. I'll never doubt that. So...
kind of a special Thanksgiving for you, I guess, in some ways.
Yes. It's been 11 months since this all started. Linda and I joke with each other, we call it our lost year. It's been just a year of medical treatments and tests and surgery. This past week was the first week since the beginning of the year I didn't have a doctor's appointment, a medical test, surgery, a chemo treatment, or a home visit for something. I had no medical appointments at all, and I almost didn't know what to do with myself, because I could schedule my time. I didn't have to say, oh, I can't do this day because I have to be there for an appointment. I remember about halfway into my chemo treatments, we left. I had my infusions in Kennett, and we drove through Kennett on the way home, and I could see people walking up and down the sidewalk and sitting at tables outside restaurants on a nice day eating lunch. And I told Linda, what I was looking forward to more than anything else is a normal day, so we could do the things that these people were doing. And a couple weeks ago, we had that normal day, and I realized it, and I was so thankful. We ran errands, and while we're out, we stopped and got lunch. And I said, we're doing these normal things that I wanted to do so many months ago. And
Nor-
God's brought us here.
normal and ordinary, but it sounds like they're no longer ordinary to you.
No, not at all.